Welcome back to another great episode of Secured Out Podcast. As always, I am your host, Denny Caballero, and today I have the one man I've been waiting to talk to for a long time because I feel that I talk about his program and how great it is every other podcast. Michael Halty, thank you for being here. The Honor Foundation is something that I love to support and bring to everybody that I meet, whether they're a recently separated veteran or somebody that's thinking about separating. That's usually the first pitch that I give. It's like, have you thought of or heard of the Honor Foundation? They're usually like, no. I'm like, God, I feel like I'm a door-to-door salesman or a Jehovah's Witness for the program because it
Word
works.
of mouth, man. Word of mouth. Yeah.
So yes, I am spreading the good word. But Michael, thank you so much for being here today. Before we get off talking about the program, how are you doing today? Tell us about you.
Yeah. Before I start on that, man, thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Today's been amazing, man. Like, woke up, having a great time with the wife, sat in the hot tub for a bit. It's a beautiful day, playing with a dog. Like, it's one of those relaxing, getting stuff done, but not like overstressed. So awesome day.
Nice. That's perfect, Dan. Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being here, especially on a holiday. I normally, I try to take these days and really enjoy them, especially now that I'm out. But I couldn't pass up this opportunity because I want to know your journey, man. I think that the Honor Foundation does a great job of highlighting the story of the creation and how it was purpose built. I mean, all of us have gone through there and we've all seen debriefings of how it started, but yeah, let's take it back to the very beginning. How did you first handle your transition?
Yeah, so I guess my transition really started. I was watching the guys and gals ahead of me, like my peer group, and watching, the peer group ahead of me, and watching transition really didn't look good. And then the Honor Foundation kind of came onto the map in San Diego, and Raiders were invited to come down and be a part of that with Navy SEALs, SWCC, and the Navy EOD techs that were going through there. And so we jumped at the opportunity. And so a couple of peer groups ahead of me, guys started going and they started coming back with, hey, you need to do this, go left, don't go right, slow down, don't speed up, all the things that good mentors and good leaders do for everyone coming behind them. So I got a bunch of that like 2-3 years before I started my transition journey. And so the drumbeat was start early and don't think you can wait till tomorrow. And no matter what you do all these things, but it all starts with THF. Like if you're a special operations guy or gal, you need to start with THF, and then you can go right of that and plan out all the other things you also need to do. So I tried to follow suit with all of that good information I got. And so right around end of 2017, I knew I was going to hit 20 years in the following year, and I was probably done in 2018. And so I started getting my application in, and I ended up joining as a fellow, brand new. Showed up on day one somewhere in the spring of 2018 with a suit that didn't fit right. I was super nervous. My name tag was on crooked that I hand wrote, and I didn't know how to talk about myself. I was still Master Sergeant Halterman, an ops chief, and using acronyms that we're familiar with back in the old career that everyone's like, I don't know what you just said to me. And over the course of my time at the Honor Foundation, I learned to really figure out who I was becoming, who my new community was going to be, what my purpose was. And from all of that, I was able to really derive some meaning in life again. Because when all of that stuff starts to go away at the end of your career, whether it's 10, 20, 30 years, and the uniform comes off, the rank comes off, no one cares about those schools that you did that were high speed and cool anymore. Who are you? Yeah. Who are your people? And how are you going to grapple with that, right? So over that 3-month cohort, I got to grapple with all of that. And I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I knew I was going into the space industry, and none of that happened. And that's okay. And that's okay because the skill sets I learned allowed me to adapt to the new environment and allowed me to quickly make really intelligent decisions instead of just going whack-a-mole, like, oh, I think this will work. Like, let's try and do this. And when I was offered the opportunity to stay at the Honor Foundation as staff, it was, running it through my decision matrix was very fast, and it only made sense. Like, wait, I get to help my brothers and sisters as my job. Like, yes, sign me up. Let's go. I want to do this. So that's the short version of how I ended up going through as a fellow, becoming an alumni, and now 5 years later, coming up on 5 years as a staff member, I've got a full enlistment as a civilian now.
That is awesome. It's just like going through, going to selection all over again.
Yes, 100%, dude. You know what no one told me, and I just kind of realized over the last 5 years of getting to kind of, really professionalize and look at the transition environment. Selection never ends. Yep. Right? You kind of hear that when you're in the ODAs, when you're in the teams, when you're in the platoons. You hear that, and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But you don't realize that continues on well after.
Yep.
Like, selection never ends. And so once you get that mindset, man, it becomes like, oh, all right, well, let's do it.
It's the equivalent of mastering, and for all my nerds out there that are listening, my video game people, you master a video game and you have to restart all over again. Yeah, you know the levels.
Yeah.
They're a little bit different, but you don't have any of the tools, any of those cool weapons. It's just like that going out in the civilian world.
Yeah, great metaphor.
It's so ridiculous when I talk to my friends now that are seeing that definitive end of their service right in front of them. They're like, I have no tools. I have no resources. I'm like, wake up. You do. The same things that made you successful in special operations are going to help you be successful. You just need to rebrand some of these, or rename some of these tools. Need to find mentors. Need to find a program that can give you the time and space to discover who you are and what your true purpose, passion, and mission is. And that's what the Honor Foundation is. Like, it literally, there was a little bit of a shift in my life where I was actually able to start focusing on these concepts before I left, before I started it. And that gave me sort of a primer, because I showed up, I already read Simon Sinek. I showed up, I already knew. I had like this, a kit bag with all these new things about me as a guy. This is what I'm taking with me to the civilian world. And I remember sitting down that first day in the classroom and be like, oh, okay, I kind of already have a head start on this. I know who I am. I know I don't want to do any of this defense stuff. I don't want to do any of this stuff. I'm not going to be master's. I'm not going to get a master's in business. I'm not going to go this route. So I had this little kit bag of like what's truly authentic me. And the Honor Foundation was like, please share that. Be open, be honest, this is great. This is you. Yeah. Share this stuff. And it's like, you think back of being in the team room, and it's like, I don't want to let anybody know this stuff. I don't want to let anybody know that I'm doing a podcast. I want to be an audio producer. I'm not sharing this. But when you're there in the classroom, it's like, hey, you got skills. You've got certifications that you paid for doing this thing. Celebrate it. Put that up there. Put it out there. And it's like, holy shit. Nobody else is telling me that. I remember talking to other groups, other organizations, and it was almost like, we're going to put you through this 2 to 3 weeks, and then we're going to send you where we think you need to go for employment. And it's like, wait a second. No, like that
sounds like the Army. Sounds like the Marine Corp.
I was like, wait, this is weird. Like, I don't want to, no, this is not me. I'm not the sales guy. Like, that's not my thing. And I've seen that. And I remember seeing guys that were like, well, I have a passion for maybe trying agriculture, or I have a passion for maybe going into the trades. Where's the program for me? Where's that program? And I'm like, you're right. Where is that? A lot of people see you as a commodity. Special operations guy, I can put you in front of a CEO that's you're gonna make tons of money. And that's great. Money's awesome. But
money's great. Yeah.
If your purpose and passion isn't tied into that, then you're never gonna be happy. And then we're gonna become that statistic of like 6 months, you're gonna quit that job, and it's like, yep, gotta go back to what I need to do to figure out who I am, figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
But it's those key conversations that I had in those first few weeks in that classroom that made me realize, like, this is different. This program is so different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, there's so much in there you just talked about too. And the happiest moments of my job or when I get to sit with the fellows on orientation night, right? And they show up just like I did, nervous, uncertain. They're not sure how to talk about themselves. They have that whole old persona is still just weighing on them in many ways, right? And they don't know who they're becoming yet. They don't know who their new tribe is and all of those things. And then, later on in the evening on orientation night, we introduce ourselves to each other, right? And you get an opportunity to say, hey, maybe this is, I think, what I might want to do. Or somewhere in phase one, sometimes we'll do that. I think I want to, and then fill in the blank. And the guys and gals that say, I'm probably just going to contract, right?
Yeah.
And then all the way to graduation night, though, where those guys and gals are like, I'm going to open a cookie truck. I'm going to go, I got an opportunity to be at Apple. I got an opportunity I'm going to do an internship at Google, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Those ones make me so happy because it's like, okay, we did it. We opened up the aperture fully, and then we narrowed it in on something else that wasn't just the same old kind of easy answer. And they're doing something that you can see the light in their eyes, right? The hope, the energy, the goodness. And it's just, man, those ones are the best.
Oh yeah. That's one of the greatest things about being able to share this program with people, especially the guys or gals that were in the same boat as I was. Like, it's after doing this for so long, it's inevitable you're going to have injuries. You're going to have issues that come up, and it's like, hey, maybe your career is coming to an end, and it's because of a physical injury. It's because of mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a definitive timeline. You have to make sure you transition, and you don't have the capacity and you don't have the time to try this. If you have to make a decision, I'm telling you, if you're out there and you're worrying about what to do, the Honor Foundation. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of places will give you, like, I don't want to give the names of the other ones, but they'll put you on this really short timeline of like, come in, we'll teach you how to do a resume, we'll teach you how to do an interview, and then we're gonna throw you at the wolves. At no point do they take in consideration the human factor. The operator that's sitting across from the teachers in that classroom, and they find out like, hey, this guy's been doing X, Y, and Z. He's been coming out of this treatment center. Like, we need to focus on him. We need to focus on his story, figure out like what he needs right now. He needs to learn how to write a resume, but he also needs to know how to talk about himself and bring out all those attributes. And in that 3-month window, that person's not only going to feel better about their process leaving, but they're going to feel better about who they are, because the identity crisis is huge, but the Honor Foundation kind of helps you overcome that, because the entire time you're going through there, you're discovering who you are. You're discovering your personal attributes, down to the strengths, your soft and vital skills that you brought to the military that have nothing to do with pulling the trigger, have nothing to do with CQB. You figure out all those things there for free. You're not paying. Yeah. Where it's when you look on the outside, some of the tests that you do to figure out those strengths, those soft skills, they cost a lot.
Thousands.
It's not,
thousands
of
dollars.
Not cheap, but you're doing all that work there. And that's why I feel it's even more rehabilitation for the soul and the mind going through that program. And now looking back, it's like, that was like the perfect thing for anybody that's leaving the soft world and trying to transition back and make a living. Because a lot of us, we get this idea that I'm going to get out, I'm not going to work, I'm just going to stay home. And that works for a little bit. If you need to take a knee, take a knee. But at some point, your mind's going to say, all right, I got to fucking do something. I've seen it from a lot of friends.
Absolutely.
And if you don't take the time to sit down and go through this program and really realize what you want to do, like, you'll figure it out eventually, but maybe it'll take a little longer.
We're sharks, man. We can't stop moving. We're absolutely sharks. You can take a knee for a little while, and we highly advocate it for the guy or the gal that identifies, I need to take a knee to take care of my physical or mental well-being, and I have financial runway to do that. Yeah. We absolutely advocate for those individuals to do that. But you nailed it, man. We're sharks. We cannot stop moving. And if we are not driven by a purpose that is truly at the depth of, solving a hard problem, because that's the other thing we've all got to do, man, we fall apart quick. Yeah. So we've got to stay engaged with the world for sure.
Absolutely. Now I want to ask you about the curriculum, because like I said, I I am constantly looking, I am constantly engaging with other organizations, trying to find out every tool to bring to the audience, to bring to the service member or veteran that's on the website, that's reaching
Mhm.
out. How did you guys develop this program? It's unique in so many different ways, but how did you guys first develop this concept?
Yeah, so back in 2013, let's go all the way back to before it existed. Our founder got a catastrophic injury at Buds, and not only was he never going to be a SEAL, he was not going to be in the Navy any longer. So his time, now he's on a medical board, and the unknowns of the medical board, right? And so over the course of a year where he still hadn't been medically processed out, he ends up working all that odds and ends admin jobs there at the grinder, watching his class, watching them graduate, watching all of those things happen. And one of the most and he started to watch as guys and gals were mostly guys transitioning from there. And I think the tipping point, the story he tells was he watched a 30-year dude, with just a rack of medals, like, silver stars, bronze stars, combat proven gentleman walk across the grinder after his final salute, and he's done being the SEA. And he looked him in the eyes and said, I have no idea what I'm doing next. I don't have a job. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my mortgage, and it's just the all the things that come with that. And so the founder was like, okay, someone's got to solve this. And if maybe that someone's got to be me. So he starts doing lots of interviews with guys and gals, pre-transition, post-transition, guys that have, 2 years down the road. What are they finding? And so it was a little bit of self-knowledge, knowing what the transition environment's like. And that still holds true because most of our directors on the program side are former soft guys. So they've been through it, both retirements and EAS or ETS. And then really doing, asking the hard, tough questions of, okay, we'll get you a job, but wait a second, that's probably not enough. Well, what else is there? How do you really start to figure all that, all those things out? Lots of interviews, lots of questions, lots of feedback from the initial, probably group or cohorts 1 through 10 were a lot of fact finding, right? Of really just kind of throwing things at the wall and then doing an AAR that night and saying, guys, what stuck, what didn't stick, what's good, what's bad, give us the ugly. Maybe it was just that faculty that night. Maybe it's the curriculum totally. This night wasn't even needed. So a ton of that happened at the beginning. And then it slowly becomes what it has today, which is 3 months, executive style education. We recognize you have a busy day job. We bring you in the evening so you can work all day. Doors open, depending on the location of the campus, anywhere from 3 p.m. to maybe 5:30. Serve everyone dinner, try and do a really good dinner. We recognize you're coming from that busy day job of whatever command you're at. We ask you to show up in some civilian attire, preferably business casual, so you can start getting used to how that suit fits that you bought in Thailand or you bought in Emirati or wherever you got it, right? And realize maybe that thing doesn't work after that deployment or now, given your body size in the moment. And work through some of that stuff and then do some really lightweight networking because we try and bring some interesting people in for dinner so that you can just have casual conversations and you may not know they're an owner of company X or a VP or middle management at an equity firm or something like that. And then from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. really grind over the curriculum that we're talking about, and so it's 3 months long. You're in a cohort, so you're not doing it by yourself. You're doing it with, other fellows who are going through the exact same things that you're going through. And phase 1 for a full month is all about you. Like, let's help you really start to figure out what it is you want to do next, who you're becoming, who your next tribe of people are, because you're leaving the team and you've got to surround yourself with support. And you can start with the cohort in the room. And then you've got to start, bolting on new mentors, new coaches, and all of those things. So also very early on, we pair you with a coach. And that way you have a one-to-one person who's meeting with you once a week for an hour so that you can bounce good ideas, bad ideas, and get told, hey, man, your baby's ugly. That's not reality. Or you can get told, yes, that's a great idea. Let me give you 3 people to go have a cup of coffee with, have a conversation with before you go make this major life decision on, going into banking, going into finance, going into tech, going into manufacturing, going into steel construction, whatever it is. Go talk to 3 people who do that. And then you talk to a few more if it sounds interesting. Or like you said earlier on, which is great, like get rid of it. Like if you know that's not for you, better to get rid of that bright, shiny object now and start to keep concentrating and narrowing down to the thing that makes the most sense for you. So that's a lot of the phase 1 stuff. And, something that's in there, you also alluded to some other great organizations. And I'm not going to say anything about bad about any of them because they're filled with great Americans who care and they're doing meaningful work. And I appreciate that. The problem is there's a difference that doesn't get talked about between transition and change. What we're all going to go through when we leave service is lots of changes. And we have to conduct change management to take care of those situational and contextual things. I'm going to change my job. I'm going to change who I work for. I'm going to change how much money I make. I'm going to change potentially where I live. But none of that has to do with the transition. The transition actually happens psychologically in your head and in your heart. And it's how you feel about those changes, which every dude who just heard that is like, shut up. I don't want to hear that. Sorry, brother.
True.
That's real. It is 100% true. And you've been alluding to it in many, many of your episodes, right? And so really taking the time to grapple with that transition while answering those change management questions for your life, building structure around how to answer those questions without just flinging something at the wall, right? Putting framework around it, enabling you with a coach, enabling you with a cohort of like-minded individuals and high performers, so you don't go too far off in the left field. And all of those things are super helpful before we go into phase 2, which is kind of like the tactical level skills of change management. We're going to make sure you got a solid LinkedIn. We're going to work on your business cards, what you're wearing, how you talk about yourself, your personal pitch, resume. And then we're going to finish phase 2, which is also a full month, with a speed dating night of mock interviews. And you're going to get 5 to 6 mock interviews in one night. And it's a lot like going to the Square Bay with your team for the first time, or your ODA for the first time. Let's get shots just on the targets and not in the wood, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just get everybody. Don't worry about the grouping yet.
So true.
Don't worry about any of that. Let's just get them off the wood and out of the dirt onto the target. And then by the end of the night, guys are shooting fast and hot, right? And maybe you experienced it.
Oh yeah.
So
the and there's so many of that you just share that I was just like, this is why it's so powerful. The greatest thing are the people that you bring, the assets you bring to bear for every class, every cohort. You guys don't miss. Every single presentation, every single person that comes to speak to the class, it's not every once in a while you will have these standout days in soft where somebody, a key speaker comes in. And a lot of times it's like, man, this wasn't even added value. Like, you're wasting my day. I could be in the team room doing something. I could be planning. And it's like, great. Thanks, command, for bringing this speaker. Wow. No, the Honor Foundation, every single person that comes in that doorway to talk to you is going to leave a lasting impact on you. They're going to drop knowledge that's like, holy shit, that's profound. Developing your why, developing the reason why you are who you are and what you're going to be bringing to those interviews, to that company. And then having speakers from Brief Lab. If you guys haven't heard of Brief Lab, you need to check it out. I'll put this information on the website or in the description of this episode. But then you have the individuals that come there to be your mentor, to be your personal coach. And shout out to George Meeker. I still talk to mine. And it's one of the most amazing resources you guys provide, because as a Green Beret, as a MARSOC Raider, as a Navy SEAL, you are the operator on the ground. You are a master of your domain. You know everything there is to do, or everything there is to know about your job and your profession. But you don't know what it's like to be on the outside. If you want to go into insurance, you don't know anything about that world. If you want to go into a program manager in tech, you don't know anything about that world, but your coach probably does. Or they will be able to reach out to somebody within their network and help you get in contact with that person, so you can sit down and actually talk to somebody that's doing the job that you want to do. And the greatest aspect for that I experienced was I didn't want to do anything like anybody else in my cohort. My purpose, my passion is giving back, nonprofit work, working with music, working with uh, recording, doing podcasting. That's the network that I wanted to get tapped into. And my coach went above and beyond. George not only was like, you know what, I got contacts here, I got contacts over here. Let's start getting you plugged in. Let's start talking to people. And before you know it, this person's moving mountains. This person's engaging on a
Mm-hmm.
golf course. In my case, George was
Yeah.
golfing one day, happened to meet somebody that did nonprofit work, got him connected to me, and I'm like, holy cow, this is the weekend, George. Like, what are you doing?
That's
And
awesome.
that's his mission. That's what he's
Yeah.
passionate about, giving back to us. He never knew me. He never met me until that day that we got connected through the Honor Foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
I quickly realized that the brotherhood and camaraderie that you are able to build in the military, you can build that in the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
When a person that's running their own insurance business is willing to dedicate an hour every Friday and then advocate for me, never meeting me in person, just hustling out there to get me in contact with other podcast producers, people
Mm.
in the music industry, people everywhere. That man turned every stone and left no resource untapped to help me out. And that blew my mind because the world that we live in the military will tell you every single day, civilians never understand you. They're not family. Your family's here. I never met George till face to face until graduation because he came to my Honor Foundation graduation. That's how
Wow.
committed that man was to
Yeah.
seeing me meet meet my needs to
Yeah.
find the things that I wanted to be successful in. That's commitment. That's the type of
Yeah.
brotherhood and connections you'll get through this program, which is one of the most important things. And I didn't see that with anywhere else. Nowhere else are you getting access to people who are willing to do that much for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you get that all the way through phase one and phase two, which we talked about a little bit. And they're helping you steer, right?
Yeah.
Left, right, rudder steers, depending on what you need and what you're asking for. And when you're running into no's, sometimes they can get you to a yes with somebody else. And then that takes us into phase three, which is also a full month. And we really try and make sure that everybody's exposed to as much opportunity as possible. Because it's really hard to know all the different industries out there, let alone all the different companies. So
Yeah.
we work really hard to bring in interesting speakers, kind of like you spoke about before, to do some panel speaking, and hear from tech, hear from manufacturing, hear from banking, hear from finance, and what's the difference between banking and finance. Hear about PE and VC. What's the difference between private equity and venture capital? And then you get to learn about all of these, and I'm only touching the top of the iceberg on this one. There's many
Yeah.
more we try and bring in, commercial real estate, and all the rest, so that you can have a chance for a really meaningful conversation and exchange of ideas and hear about an industry you've never heard of. And then, to the culminating event, if you will, is taking guys to a major metropolitan area, a major city. We're going to Seattle this year, and we're going to a couple of other big cities where they'll get to go in person and see these companies from the inside. So these
That's
companies,
awesome.
LinkedIn, Molson Coors, REI, Nike, Adidas, Airbnb, just to name a
Get
few that have
out of
done this
here.
in the past. They invite you in. They invite all of us in, all 30 of us, now wearing much better suits, understanding how to talk about ourselves, understand having a business card to hand off, a resume you feel good about, really understanding your value as you walk through the doors. And now you get to have these really neat interactions inside these spaces and ask really tough questions like, what do you do all day on staff at Airbnb? What do you actually do? And then you can figure out, like, is it 9 to 5? No, it's like 8 to 8. Like, if you want to be here, you got to grind. Well, that's good to know before you go submit your application,
Yeah.
especially if you told your spouse, I'm going to be around more. If you told
Yep.
your kids, I'm going to be around more. Those are the things that you find out by having those conversations. And so you'll get to tour a bunch of companies. You'll get to really kind of figure out what's next for you. And then, our mission statement really comes into play at the very end after graduation. We serve others with honor for life. So your next mission is clear and continues to impact the world. That means when you graduate from a cohort with us, we're going to serve you for the rest of your life. We're going to make sure that you stick the landing after you graduate with us and you get off of active duty, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you're getting your next opportunity that's going to fulfill you financially, your financial obligations, and more importantly, fulfill you as a person doing something that really is meaningful to you. And if it's not that, that is okay, because we've given you skills and we're going to continue to serve you. When you get 2 years then in at that new company and you learn new skills and your whole resume just doesn't say Green Beret, now it says a little bit of Green Beret and a whole lot of hard skills at a company, you're a totally different person going into the
Yeah.
market now. And we're going to help you. And if that's not the right fit, or you're just moving your way up the ladder, we're going to continue to help you figure out what you're doing next, where you're doing it, with what great company, until you say, you know what, I'm retired.
That's awesome. Now, you had me at REI. I didn't know you guys were partnering up with them. And anybody that gets a chance to take on these treks and go meet these companies, you realize that you were telling yourself myths for a lot of your
Mm-hmm.
career about
Yep.
the outside world. Well, I have nothing to bring these companies. Like, yes, you do. You
Mm-hmm.
do. And it's so hard to bring these guys to come along until they're actually at a trek or they're actually seeing, these individuals that were just like them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so scary thinking back, like, oh man, reaching out to these people in these companies. Like, I don't know, dude. It's like, look, they were in your shoes. A lot of these
Yeah.
people, like, you can look in there, they're prior military, maybe they're prior soft. Just reach
Mm-hmm.
out, talk to them, and you'll realize that a lot of times we're scared because we see the job posting and we don't realize that it's a
Mm-hmm.
network. They're looking
Mm-hmm.
for individuals that have the skills and the personality and the experience. And hey, if you don't have everything column A, but you have a whole bunch in column B, that's perfect. They'll take you. But you don't
Mm-hmm.
get that. You don't see that when you're just staring at that job listing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And when you guys help us interact with the companies and meet them at the table, you're opening up the avenues for so many other soft professionals. So the roads have already been built. The
Mm-hmm.
access is there. We have access and placement in these companies.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you're on the cusp of making the decision to, you know, submit for application to get on the Honor Foundation, send it, do all the prep work, and realize they're going to put you in front of these people to talk and ask them how to actually be in that job, how to actually get in that job
Yeah.
listing. And it's something that we all struggle with. We have this idea that we can't see ourselves in that job at Google or at Apple or
Mm-hmm.
even these defense tech companies. But the moment you're sitting down at the track and you're actually sitting there and talking to these people, you realize, oh wow, like I have a lot that I bring to the table. And it's just like, if you could just bring people in just to see that and like offer that view, that would be so helpful. And it
Absolutely.
just, God, guys need to understand that they have a lot that they actually bring to the table to all of these companies. But it's so hard to describe that unless you're actually there and you actually do the program.
Yeah. Yeah, and a few pieces in there, man. We try and create an environment where you don't stand in line with everybody else submitting your application online and hopefully waiting
Yeah.
that you're going to hear back. No, 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 no. We're soft, brothers. We're going to skip the line as often as we can. We're going to go in through the back door and we're going to get invited in with a handshake, and it's going to be a great conversation because as you've said a few times now, we're going to use our network. Sometimes that's one of the 2,000, more than 2,200 alumni that we currently have, whether it's a SEAL, a Green Beret, a Ranger, a Raider, a former SOAR, a former intelligence professional at a company like Apple, at a company like you name it, whatever your bright, shiny object, we might have somebody there. Or it might be a
Yeah.
link through an amazing coach, like you just alluded to. And instead of just waiting in line like everybody else, more often than not, we're trying to make sure that you skip the line, and we're working very hard at advocating for you so that the company understands that, yes, your resume looks a little different, but it is no less valuable. Although it doesn't have the bright, shiny things that they're used to, like, a high-end 4-year degree from an Ivy League college, or it
Mhm.
doesn't have some of these things. that's okay. Take a chance on this gentleman, this lady, and you will not regret it. And more often than not, the companies that do, they say 2 years down the road, where do we get, or really 6 months down the road, they say, where do we get 10 more? We need 10 more just like this fellow that you just sent us, because he went from 0 to 1 faster than anybody that we've ever onboarded, and he's already solved more problems. We've already promoted him, and we need 10 more immediately. And that's, I mean,
That is so true.
yeah, happens almost every time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, and you will see this, and a lot of people echo this, whether it's on a Q&A on LinkedIn. It's not about throwing out resumes. Even the easy
Yeah.
applies. It's not about just sitting in front of your
Yeah.
computer. And even if you're tailoring the resume to the job description with a targeted cover letter, and you're doing this from 9 to 5, and you're just grinding, telling you right now, it's about who you know and developing a network. It's about developing. It's You've already learned these lessons. You've already become a professional, and developing a support network.
Yeah.
It's already been laid out. You've
Yeah.
already done this, and that's what you're doing. You're getting in front of people that can get your foot in the door, but not just make entry. You're going in there with your resume already been presented to this person. It's already been sent to them. It's already been past you're not submitting it to a computer program that's going to scan it to make sure it has all the keywords. It's going to a real human being that's going to say, hey, bring this guy in for an interview, which for a lot of people, they don't realize that if you're just cold sending emails with resumes or through LinkedIn or Indeed, dude, that is,
like at Apple published, how many, they get 10,000 resumes a day.
Yep.
And as best as I know, the Honor Foundation is the only one who got a 13-year seal with no degree into Apple, who has now been there 2 years, got his degree at night so that he could stay and continue to excel, and was part of the team that just launched their newest product. Like, that is a story of possible, right? Of the impossible being made possible. We did it through networking. We did it through one of our coaches who's at Apple, and several other advocates there at Apple who see the value and are now asking, hey, can we get some more of those? Those were amazing. Yeah.
And that's and what you just share right there, that is an amazing endeavor. Like, maybe you do have to get that college degree, but you're there. You have the opportunity now. You're getting paid. You have the benefits. Like, this is an amazing opportunity, and you wouldn't get it unless you went through the Honor Foundation.
And this was this gentleman's dream, right? Like, this is where he wanted to be. Like, as soon as he started having the conversations, I don't remember if it was a Trek visit or if it was it was a panel. That's right. We did a panel with them because we couldn't go up there. I think it might've been during 2020. And it was just, he was like, yes, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to do. And we're like, you don't have a degree, I don't know, we'll work it. And then sure enough, man, he's been there for several years now and having a great time. Another story that goes with that, that's like almost the opposite end of the spectrum, but really shows the power of possible. Another gentleman, Marine Raider, he had gone through almost the entire program and he was frustrated by it. He's like, I don't care about this feeling stuff. I kind of don't get along with my coach all that well. Like all the opposite of what we've been saying the entire time. So another coach stepped in and was like, hey, let me take a crack at this. I want to help this guy solve this problem. He's a good guy. Like, let's help him solve this. Another coach steps in and goes, okay, let's just take it all the way back to the bare wood. Like, what do you like doing? He's like, I don't know. And he's frustrated at this point. He's like, I don't know. Like, I like watching NASCAR. He's like, all right, tell me more about the coach digs in. Tell me more about that. He's like, yeah, well, every Sunday, me, my dad, and my son, we're all on the couch. We're all watching NASCAR. That's what I love. It's what we do in this house as men, blah, blah, blah. And so the coach was like, okay, so you've been here for 3 months and this is the first time you tell us you like racing. Do you see how that's a problem? You're just now telling us you like racing and you're being specific. I like NASCAR. He's like, well, check it out. I know a couple of executives that work at the Indianapolis 500. I'm going to get you some cups of coffee. Gets a couple of conversations. Couple of months later, he's working at the Indianapolis 500. No kidding, as like an operations manager. And he's like pit passes, getting to talk to drivers and pit teams, getting things done, solving hard business problems, biggest smile, you've ever seen on a dude's face, total change, right? Absolute change. And all from
Yeah.
knowing what you want, knowing the value you bring, digging into the material all the way at the end. We would like to him to dug in at, day one, but all the way at the end, he digs into the material. And that's the power of possible. And then if you pull that forward just a little bit further, he's working at the Indianapolis for 500 at the raceway for several years. It was 2 to 3 years. And he decides, you know what, like I really want to spend more time with my son. I'm missing time with my son. And I'm putting in these 80, 90, 120 hour weeks, which I love, but I'm missing time, this golden period with my son, right? So he using the skill set of the Honor Foundation that we teach, he decides this job is no longer right for me. I want to stay in racing. I'm going to start networking again. He ends up at Skip Barber Racing. He works a couple days a week and he spends most of his time with his son. And he has this perfect balance now where he's bringing in the right amount of money, still doing what he loves, but just as important, the other thing that he loves, being a dad. And he's getting that time to do it. Yep. And that guy is still biggest smile ever, happy as a clam, all the things.
Yeah, and I want to again tell the audience, this isn't the anomalies. We're not sharing stories of, the one or two guys that succeed, the one or two gals that succeed. Like, no, you put the work in this program. Not only is it enjoyable, not only are you learning stuff about yourself and you're networking and meeting great people, but you're actually able to see your future from maybe not the first day, but by the end of month one, you start seeing like, holy shit, like I can do this. I can transition and go straight into a company that I'm passionate about, doing something that I want to really do. It's not an anomaly. The odds are in your favor when you go through the Honor Foundation. And that's not to say that you can't do it on your own. It's not to say that you can't just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to chart my own course. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yep.
But if you're where I was at or where hundreds of other fellows have been at where you don't know, like you have this secret, you have this little kit bag of all the things that that are good about yourself that you want to do but don't know how to execute them, give it a shot. Because chances are if you do the work, just like if you've done the work before, you made it through selection, you made it through the pipeline, you made it through the trips, you made it through the heartache, strap them boots up one more time and go to the Honor Foundation and freaking put in the work. That's all it really is. You're just doing the work. And you can be the next success story. You could be the next person that's working at friggin' the Indy 500 or ESPN or NBC. Countless other stories like this. And it's all these companies that we've told ourselves like, oh, we don't have a shot. There's no way they want a green brain that. Come to find out they do. They do want the green brain. They want the SEAL. They do want the Raider.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The opportunities are boundless. I mean, literally, like if a guy's like listening to all of this and he's like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I want to do fill in the blank. That's possible too. I don't care what you fill that blank in with, to include if you decide to continue service by other means. And we all kind of know what that means. We fully support you. If that's the next thing for you, you're going to go to a agency, whatever that may be. We're going to support you going through that too. And we have plenty of fellows who have done that. So there is at no point, this is really important to say, at no point are we telling you what to do. At no point.
Yeah.
At every single turn, we're empowering you to make better decisions. We're giving you frameworks to make decisions, and we're enabling you to execute on those ideas, on those decisions. And one of the things, the guys that don't dig into the curriculum, or the guys that are like, I'm going to do this thing myself. I'm a team dude. I can figure out anything. I've always figured out things. I've got 20, 30 years as a GB, as a Raider, as a SEAL, whatever. And brother, yes, but you're forgetting that the team you surrounded yourself with was what really brought the best out on you. You didn't one man room clear a single room. Well, you might have had to once. We won't talk about that. That's an edge case. You didn't do full mission planning by yourself. You did it with a team of smart dudes and some smart ladies. And they said, you're not going left. You need to go right. You need to speed up, not slow down. You need to change frequencies. You need to. So yeah, you did the bulk of the work. but you're surrounded by good people who are high performers just like you. And that's what we're offering you. Like that is the full package of we're trying to enable you, surround you with other high performers who are going to help you. Don't go left, go right. We don't want to see you blown up, right? We slow down. You're not ready to go fast in the house yet. Like slow down. We'll go fast on the next run, and all of those little things. And we want to enable your best possible greatness.
Yeah, and the great thing about, I think, the pacing of the program too, that we haven't really talked about, it allows you to go through this process and decompress. Because before, when you don't have a program, or you haven't taken a decisive step into this separation or ETS journey, it can be really chaotic. It can be, holy shit, what am I going to do? I got to pay a mortgage. I got 4 kids. My wife went back to school. How am I supporting all this stuff? But the moment you make a decisive decision, make that key decision point here, I'm going to go to the Honor Foundation. You're taking a step to owning your journey. You're taking a step to saying, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know what month 1, 2, or 3 are going to be like. I don't know what's going to be at the end of the process, but I know right now in this present moment, I have a program that I'm going to go through. And then at each guiding step, every step you take along the road to ending the program, transitioning from the program to being from, just starting it to graduating it, you're gaining so many valuable tools. You're gaining great insight. You're gleaming, and you're maybe talking to some other people that have graduated before. And now you're networking. Your worry now turns into optimism. And then you have a concrete idea of what you're going to do. Then you're going to have a job offer. Or then you're going to have the success of going through that first real interview and crushing it. Like, you don't get any of that anywhere else. I know, man, the Army's process it's not without its faults. If you just go through what the Army provides, it's bare bones. You're not getting everything you can. So don't just trust on that. Be willing to submit the application for the Honor Foundation. Go through those few little requirements to get into the program, because where the Army's TAP program is very hands off. It's very like, oh, here's how to do a resume. It's not the best class. And it's it's all online. You just click through it. So don't bank on that. I made the mistake of thinking early on that, well, there's Army does a transition program. That'll be good enough. It's not. It doesn't meet your needs. It's not advocating for you. It's not giving you additional tools. And depending on where you're at, it could be limited to just online because they don't have the classroom space. So you don't have, you may not get the choice to sit down in front of a real human being, which for a lot of people, including myself, that was something that was definitely needed. If you're savvy enough and online stuff works, Honor Foundation has online cohorts, which is great. But I was blessed. The Eglin campus had in person, so I jumped at that. And that gives you the brotherhood, being able to sit down and learn from other students you're going through.
Yeah.
And it takes that stress off. Once you sit down with other people that are just like you, going through this insanely difficult process, you realize, oh, wait, I'm not alone. That's a lieutenant colonel. That's a master sergeant. That's another warrant officer over there. Wow, like I'm not alone. We're all in this together. And I didn't know anything about different industries. There's a couple guys there that are talking about it. I'm learning from them. They're learning from me. And before I know it, like everybody's able to run together. Like right now, if I look across and check the box on everybody, there isn't one single person I went through the Honor Foundation right now that isn't doing well, that isn't on their own journey, a positive journey. And that's amazing. That is a huge testament to the program, how well it works, because when none of the people that you've gone through this program are struggling, are having hard times, like everybody's running, like that is a great testament. And you don't see that everywhere. So that's one of the greatest aspects of being able to bring you into a room with other service members that are right there with you, and seeing everybody go from being a little timid, a little fearful, to everybody being confident on that last night on graduation, knowing like, hey, I know where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah. And then watching, guys and gals say, "Hey, I have my first job opportunity, or I landed my first
Yeah.
job opportunity, and I start in a week, or I start in 45 days," and they know how to negotiate all of that too, right? They're not just
Yeah.
willy nilly going into it. We teach them how to negotiate all of that.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many good pieces in there you just talked about, whether it's SFL TAP, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, congressionally mandated 1 week transition course, whether it's online or in person. Look, you need to do it because it's going to teach you the big muscle movements of getting out of big Army, big Navy, big Air Force, big Marine Corps, right? So you've got to check that box. Don't sleep on it. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
But really, we want to get left of that. Like, we want to be way left of that. By left of that, I mean like 18 months out is pretty much the sweet spot for anybody who's making that decision of, I think it's time for me to transition, whether that's an ETS, med boards
Absolutely.
come up out of nowhere. We understand that. Just hit I believe, jump on the website and hit us start your package. But if you're retiring and you've got a date, we want to be left of that about 18 months. And because you're going to have to eat an elephant over the next 18 months, right? It's huge. Like, you've got to figure out, not only do you got to figure out everything that we've been talking about, we haven't even touched VA, your medical claim inside
Oh
the
yeah.
unit. We haven't even touched, I mean, there's layers to this. And so the
Yeah.
reason we want to be all the way left of it is so that you build a skill set that then you can exercise over that 18 months while you're chipping away or eating little by little the rest of that elephant, working on your VA claim, working on all the things that your home command is asking you to do, working on all the things that big Army, big Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps is asking you to do to get out, figuring out your insurance, figuring out really where do you sit financially. Those are a lot of things that you got to get done. So we want to get way left, build those, and start working on all of those things. And now, you touched on it a little bit. You come in with your cohort and you can say, "Hey, brother, what are you working on? Where are you going? Like, tell me about the conversations you've been having." And you start to share resources right there at the dinner table before you even go into the classroom. You're already figuring out, like, yeah, hey, I
Yeah.
got this VSO who's helping me with my VA claim. Like, you need to talk to Henry, right? Because that dude's the man. Like, he totally, got my paperwork straight and get me through the process. Or you need to go to this other organization because I was dealing with PTSD, right? And I finally had a
Yep.
breakdown at the house, and it doesn't feel good to admit it, but man, I'm hurting. Like, hey, you need to go here, brother. Like, this helped me. I had something similar. You start to share those resources, and just like you said, man, you're not alone. You're going
Yeah.
through it together. Don't try and clear the room by yourself. Go in with brothers. Three-man
It's
room
so
clears
true.
at a minimum.
It's so true. But it's one of the key things that I know I brought to my cohort was I had already gone through my journey
Mm.
and had gone
Hmm.
through my physical and mental breakdown, had to go
Mm.
through treatment centers and everything. And there were a lot of individuals there that it was the first time they were able to take a knee.
Hmm.
And we all know when you are removed from the high stress environment and then you're finally able to kind of like take a knee for the first time, it's like, whoa, everything's inflamed. Everything is hyper, like everything
Yeah.
falls apart so fast. And guys are starting to
Yeah.
realize, like, oh man, like this is the first time I've been able to breathe. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're upregulated. You're like, you're fight or flight mode, my man.
Yeah.
Like,
And you have been for
and it's like,
years,
holy shit.
decades.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, you have no
But
idea
it's
how
that type
stressed
of
out you
connection.
are until it finally, that stress
Yeah.
starts to come off, just like you said, right? And you're like, whoa, I have
Yep.
been living stressed out for a decade or more. No wonder why my sleep is a train
Yep.
wreck. No wonder why I drink the way I do. No wonder why it's hard to wake up in the morning. No wonder why my knees, back, all the things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Because depending on where you are, you might be paired up with some people that have started their road to recovery. They have started
Hmm.
their journey to getting better, and you might be able to glean some success off of what they're doing. And that's one of the beautiful things that I was able to share with a lot of people. It's like, hey man, like it's not if, it's when. Like
Hmm.
everything kind of falls apart at this age. Like the moment that stress comes off, like the work is like when you hand off that friggin' baton to the next guy,
Yeah.
Then your world starts, all the alarms finally start clicking on. It's like, holy shit, everything is fucking on fire. I need help.
Yeah, literally. From you to the home to
Yeah.
where you like all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a great experience to be able to stand up and be like, hey, like, you're gonna go through a lot of changes. Like this
Mhm.
identity, this feeling like you've lost your mission and your purpose. Like this isn't gonna be you. Like take a knee, pour into yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. Take care of yourself now. Start working on that.
Mhm.
Start putting your priorities on your healing while you're going through this journey of transitioning to the next job,
Mhm.
because you don't want to be the person that, once you leave, then you have that crisis. It's like, no, work on it now. Like, not 3 months while you're there. And a lot of guys did take it serious. A lot of guys, maybe they were still working, but they took off a little bit more off their plate so they could be focused on the program,
Mhm.
focused on the Honor Foundation. And that's honestly one of the keys to success, in my opinion. If you're trying to do the program while still being that guy in charge and doing everything, dude, try to get some things off your plate, guys or gals. Please
Mhm.
listen. Try to make sure that you have time dedicated to go to class, do your homework, do your assignments, and you're not stressing about work. Because your career is ending. You have to pass the baton. You have to train the people that are there to take over, and that's okay. It,
Mhm.
it's it's a beautiful part of life, transitioning away from the military into your civilian world. So it's okay to say, "Hey, I need help. I need somebody to help cover down on my duties. I can do this and put myself in a position of success." There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You've given the military 20, 30 years of your life. It's okay for the next 3 months you ask for help while you're going through this program.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and your purpose is going to change, right? It doesn't end. It does
Yeah.
just your need to serve doesn't just magically end when the uniform comes off. It's not just over. And I would
Yeah.
say, you know, I would say we need to serve now in the civilian capacity more so than ever. If you
So
look
much.
at
Yes.
all of the problems in the United States. So here's my crazy idea, right? I have these big crazy ideas. And because you've done Gallup strengths, I'm a futuristic and ideation, which means I
Mhm.
just get these big crazy ideas and I just get a bunch of them. So here's my big crazy idea. We all know who the greatest generation is. Like we know exactly who they are. And we all would agree that, they're the greatest generation because they went away for however many years it took to defeat pure evil and liberate millions of people, right? And they did so and they won, like hands down winners, right? I say that's only half the story. Yes, all of that is true. But then they came home and they continued
Yeah.
to serve. They took back over the companies. They jumped back into whatever level of management, frontline workers. They took back over as CEOs. They started companies. If you look at the companies started in the couple of years right after the end of World War II, a bunch of those companies are still around and they're doing great things. And then if you look at the amount of us, all of those, the greatest generation, using the brand new GI Bill, going to college and then leveraging that. Because then if you look at what happens to companies right after, if they did 4 years, what those companies were doing and the new companies that were created, no kidding, it's the biggest economic boom maybe in the history of the world right during that time period because they came home, they got to work, and they said, "What else, what other complex problem can I solve?"
Yeah.
And they linked up with their brothers and they just kept pushing the fight. That purpose changed, their uniform came off, but they kept grinding for America. I think that's why they're the greatest
Absolutely.
generation. And I think that
Yeah.
our generation could do something very similar.
Absolutely true. The idea that our communities aren't part of our warrior culture or part of our tribe is absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have created this narrative that veteran or active duty are separate
Mm-hmm.
from our civilian society, and it's not true. You're a vital member of your
Mm-hmm.
community. Like, we don't have to. We have this wrong idea. and we need to shift. And I've seen a lot of companies helping shift that narrative, trying to heal that divide, because for a long time we were kind of pitted against each other, civilians and veterans, veterans against civilians. Like, no, you're no better than Steve that went out there and started his own plumbing business. You're no better than David that freaking manages a bank. You're part of the same community, part of the same tribe. You can enhance each other's
Mm-hmm.
lives. Maybe David doesn't know all the skill sets and all the things that you learned in the military. And you would stop to think of how much they would love to sit down and talk with you and get some vital insight as to what you've done. And you could do the same. Because while you went away to war, they were grinding on their own, developing a
Mm-hmm.
company from the ground up. Like, integrate, be willing to, and it's as simple as walking across the street and talking to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Like, you already have the perfect friggin' segue in there. They've seen you for years. If you've been stable in your same home, they've seen you leaving kitted up with Conticos and Pelican
Yeah.
cases. They see that stuff and it's like, wow, who's my neighbor? I run into that all the time. I've run into that still. I remember just a few weeks ago, I finally talked to one of my neighbors that I haven't met. And they're like, we were wondering what you did. And I'm like, yeah, I'm retired now. It's like, man, we always wondered and we never thought. But we're like, yeah, that's one of those special operator guys. So I'm like, and you already have a ticket buy-in to talk. And come to find out, this dude works in tech. This dude and his wife, awesome people. And now you're part of their community. Now you're hanging out on the weekends. Now they're helping advocate for you, maybe in that business that they have a mutual friend in. That's all you need to do. Literally be willing to talk and engage. And we're not enemies. We're not separate. And the dividing and conquering in our country right now is like a really big problem. We all have our affiliations. Get over it. Be willing to go over there and develop that network for yourself and for your family, for your own future.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have friends. It's good to have friends that come from a different background. Now more than ever, we have to be willing to walk and engage. And it might feel uncomfortable because our whole lives we've just been told that it's the brotherhood of the team, the brotherhood of the organization. These are the only people you can hang out with. It's like, no, hell no. Yeah. Ted and Ron are awesome people. They never served, and it's great to hang out with them. It's like, holy cow. Making friends that aren't in the military, weird concept.
I know, right? I mean, I had a similar experience. I mean, it took me, I've lived in pretty much in the same house for a little over a decade. And I finally met Chris, Ron, Jeremy, and all the way down. I finally met everybody in my cul-de-sac. And we finally had like a full dialogue back and forth of like getting to know each other and all of those things. And it's the idea of the silent professional is killing us. It's absolutely killing us. And I know where it comes from and I understand. I think quiet professional is still totally fine, but quiet professional doesn't mean you just still don't talk about it. It means just be humble about it, but have a dialogue, help them understand. Because if we're not talking about it, no wonder why they don't get us. So we come home and we act like an ostrich because everything's on fire. We're like, I don't want to deal with this. Right.
Yep.
And now that's why there's so few of us in Congress. There's so few of us just in local city government leadership. There's so few of us running companies right now. And I think if we change that, we change a lot of things in America, just doing what we can, where we're at with what we have. And most of that is just creating relationships.
Absolutely. And I know you're probably listening, well, Denny, how do I do that? How do I start? It's simple. It's absolutely simple. And I'm going to say it, and you're going to be like, this is dumb, Denny. Don't do it. Go to church. Go to your local community center. Volunteer.
Show up.
It's so crazy.
Yes.
I never started volunteering until I was in my late 30s, and it's one of the greatest things. Talk about something that pays out in dividends, kindness, and generosity. Like, seriously, when you do something good for somebody for no pay, nothing, you think at first, like, well, yeah, I'm going to give that person something. I'm giving them my time. I'm being of service. It doesn't feel great. No, it does. Being of service to others, regardless of how you're doing it, pays back dividends to you. It's scientifically been proven. Compassion, kindness, things like generosity feed back into you, make you feel better, make you feel connected to others. And something as simple as just going to church, if that's your thing, if you want to experiment, because I'm telling you, mind, body, spirit, they're all three of them. I used to think of, and I know people don't like hearing it, but it's good. It actually is a benefit. Explore the spirit concept. If it's something as
Mm-hmm.
simply as joining a meditation or a yoga group, do it. Be willing to try
Mm-hmm.
everything. You did in the military. When you're
Yeah,
doing COA dev, when you're doing COA development, what's one of the things? Shit, hybrid. Throw everything at
dude,
this
great
problem.
point.
Let's
Good point.
so why
Yeah,
not try it? And it's one of those things
yeah,
that it's we don't really talk about it, but I'm going to devote a few minutes to it. Like, hey, mind, body, spirit. You have to be willing to cultivate all three. And take it from me. My spirit was non-existent for a long time. I poured into it. I developed a couple little things. Mindfulness was the gateway for me. Being able to be
nice.
still, be present, and acknowledge that there's a greater power. There's something greater out there. So, again, we can talk about millions of things these days. So, I'm using my platforms to say this: get connected. Get connected with your community. Get connected with others in your life. And yes, find your faith, find your spirit. Michael, Halty, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I really appreciate your time pouring back into this concept of giving out to vets.